Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about rare earths, trade, and a few other subjects. So, the question on everyone's mind is China helping Russia and Iran win their wars? Because China's restrictions on rare earths really affects American military. The military industrial complex needs rare earths for missiles, F-35 parts, and many other weapons. You need basically rare earths, and China has put restrictions on these rare earths. And because of these restrictions, you can see Ukraine is really struggling to fight Russia. Russia has unlimited amount of rare earths. They get them from China, and also they have plenty of their own. But Ukraine is running out of missiles, anti-air defenses, and United States and Europe is really struggling to supply that to Ukraine. Same with Iran. You can see this war lasted a few days, maybe a couple of weeks, and already Israel had run out of anti-aircraft missiles and their own missiles as well, and they had to call a ceasefire because Israel was pretty much empty when it comes to its Iron Dome and Arrow missiles and THAAD missiles. US has provided Patriots as well, and all of these need rare earths. So you can say that China is indirectly helping its allies, Russia and Iran, win its wars. So let's talk about the trade, shall we? So a few weeks ago, Trump came up with this statement saying the trade deal with China is a done deal. They had a 2-day negotiation in London, and at the end of the negotiation, Trump sent out this tweet. He said, "We are getting a total of 55% tariff, China is getting 10%. He added that magnets and any necessary rare earths will be supplied upfront by China, and that US in return will make certain concessions, such as allowing Chinese students to attend US colleges and universities." So everything about this statement is false, first of all. Um, US is not getting 55% tariffs, they are getting 30%. The other 25% is from Biden's time. And also, China is not adding the tit for tat tariff number. China fights back in other ways, more cleverer ways, and one of the ways it fought back is to put restrictions on rare earths. So that really hurt American companies and the military industrial complex, and really affected American trade. And that's what they're really afraid of, the Americans, because they don't really have an alternative when it comes to rare earths. They don't have these mines. Europe doesn't have it. They don't have access to these mines around in Africa and the rest of the world. So this is their weak point, and they're really suffering because of it. So he says that magnets and other necessary rare earths will be supplied upfront by China in return for Chinese students going to United States. Again, that is not true, because if you do more further digging, if you do further digging, you can see here, this is another mining document, and you can see China did not agree to military use of rare earths, US says. So the military use for the rare earths is still intact by China. That hasn't changed. And the limits to civilian use is still intact also. Although China said they will look into maybe easing, giving more licenses to these civilian uses. And if you read this article further, you can see that, a lot of American supply chains, European supply chains have been really affected by this. A lot of EV companies are affected. Some American EV companies had to shut down for a week because they didn't have enough rare earths. So this is really have been really kind of str- Americans have been really struggling when it comes to this. And you can see here, China's chokehold on rare earth magnets needed for weapon systems remains a potential flashpoint. China dominates global production of rare earths and hold a virtual monopoly on refining and processing. A deal reached in Geneva last month reduced bilateral tariffs from a crushing triple-digit levels that had faltered over Beijing's restrictions that took shape in April. That prompted Trump to respond with export controls, preventing shipments of semiconductor design software, jet engines for Chinese made planes, and other goods to China. Um, in London, China promised to fast track approval of rare earth applications from non military uses. However, with military uses, they still stay the same. So you can see China still holds all the cards. America does not hold any cards. So Trump's statements that America is winning, China is losing, it's all fake, it's all false. In fact, nothing has changed. And you can see here, other statements are saying China will not loosen its grip on rare earths. Defense contractor Lockheed Martin is the main US consumer of samarium, and with about 50 pounds of samarium cobalt magnets in an F-35 fighter jet. So you can see they're not only used in fighter jets, they're used in missiles, anti-aircraft, and many host of other important things. So Trump's, victory parade is not really a victory. So I want to also talk about what United States is doing with other countries as well. As you know, if United States have placed tariffs on every single country around the world with this ridiculous trade policy. And one of the trade kind of discussions they are having with their allies, Japan has actually pulled out of these trade talks. I think they've had enough. Japan knows they have been absolutely scammed by the United States when it comes to these trade tariffs and stuff. So Japan has pulled out. South Korea is sending another delegation to discuss this next week. And one of the things that South Korea is discussing with United States is basically curbs on semiconductors. So what America wants to do is they said they want to revoke chip makers or non-Chinese chip makers authorization to work in China, which means South Korean chip makers like Samsung, like SK Hynix, are not allowed to open factories in China and trade in semiconductors in China. And this is affecting, obviously, the profits of South Korean companies, and they're not happy about it. And what are they getting in return? Nothing, absolutely nothing. They get these trade tariffs anyway, regardless. So you can see, the White House official says United States was just laying the groundwork in case the truce between the two countries fell apart. I expressed confidence that the trade agreement would go forward that with the rare earths flow from China as agreed. So what America wants, they want everything. They want to put these tariffs on companies and countries. They want everything they can from China, including the rare earths. They want to place as much tariffs on China as possible. They want all of their allies to not supply China with semiconductors and other advanced equipment. So this is what America wants. They just want to squeeze China and all the other countries, including their allies. So America only benefits and nobody else benefits. It's not a win-win situation for them. It's total control, and that's what Trump wants. And finally, USA is still undermining China at every opportunities. They are undermining Chinese companies like Huawei, for example. They've recently put a statement out saying that Huawei is not allowed to sell its chips to countries outside of China, and if they do buy Huawei chips, then those companies would get secondary sanctions by United States. However, they have since changed the wording for that, but they are still trying to block Huawei, and China is still not allowed to buy any high-end semiconductor equipment or chips as well. And they're also blocking Nvidia from selling its high-end chips. And also recently, Trump has stopped Nvidia from selling its low-end chips to China. So this is good news for Chinese companies. This means Western companies are basically not reliable. So Chinese companies will um, take that place. Yeah, Chinese companies in terms of semiconductors might not be as advanced as Nvidia, although Huawei's new chip is supposed to be just as advanced as the Nvidia one. And um, and this is good news because as more and more Chinese companies move to local Chinese semiconductor companies, local Chinese chips. Those Chinese chips will make money, and also that money will be put towards research and development, and they will become better and better. And over time, they will do better and they will perform better than Nvidia and also lots of American chip companies. Also, they will do better than South Korean companies as well. South Korean companies like Samsung, like SK Hynix will really suffer not being allowed to trade in the Chinese market. Eventually, Chinese companies will take over and their chips will be better and they will just drive South Korean companies out of China. So this is good news for Chinese companies, but this is bad news for Western companies because look how far China has come since they put all these semiconductor restrictions not only on China but also on Huawei. Look how far Huawei has come. They have made Huawei 100 times stronger. Before they placed all these sanctions on Huawei, Huawei didn't have a semiconductor um, branch. All they were doing was 5G at the time, and phones and mobiles and laptops. But since they placed all these sanctions on Huawei, Huawei has become a monster. Now they are doing everything. They make their own chips, like the new Huawei chip that's coming out. They make their own semiconductors. They make their own equipment. They make their own EVs. They have their own um, telecommunications department. They do their own hosting. They do their own servers, PCs, their own operating system, their own database. They pretty much do everything now, Huawei, and they've made Huawei into a much stronger company than it ever was. And the same thing's happening all over China. If they place restrictions on China and Chinese companies, these companies will eventually become better and do better, like DeepSeek, for example. So that's all I wanted to say for now. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.